So this video is going to assume you know what an infinitive means and what that is in Italian. If you're not sure, have a look at a video I'll link on screen about just what is conjugation in general. But if you do, let's dive into how do we actually conjugate some of these words. In general, Italian, the infinitive can be split into 3 different types. So let's talk about something like parlare, which means to talk. Let's use leggere, which means to read. And let's use aprire, which means to open. In general, in Italian, we can think of the infinitive as being split into 3 different buckets. We have verbs that end in are, okay, like here. Verbs that end in ere, like here, and verbs that end in ire. Now there are a couple more, pardon me, but we're just going to care about these ones. Okay, let me give you a couple more examples, and I will type these out so they're a little bit more legible. So, for example, I don't know, we could have something like mangiare. Let's make this a bit bigger, which means eat. We could have chiacchierare, which means chit chat. We have, let me check that I've actually typed that correct. So, chiacchierare. Perfect. Okay, good. We could have something like comunicare, communicate. Okay. So, what I want you to notice is that all of these verbs end in are. That means that they follow a pretty predictable pattern when it comes to talking about I eat or I chit chat or I communicate, which is good news. We want Italian. Italian is absolutely chaotic. It's a mess, and we desperately want some patterns and some repeatability wherever we can. Okay, let's give a couple more examples for the ere verbs. For example, we could have like cadere, which is to fall. Again, let's make this a bit bigger. We could have sedere, which is to sit. We could also have something like volere, which is to want. Okay, so just to recap, these all end in ere. Finally, for the ere ones are a bit more complicated for a reason that we'll get to, but we could have something like finire, to finish, capire, to understand, and pulire, to clean. And I have got something in my eye, bear with me. Okay, good. Italian is making me cry already. It is 10 a.m. in the morning, and Italian is overwhelming. Okay, so we have parlare, leggere, and aprire. So we have the are verbs, ere verbs, and the ire verbs. Okay, now, it's all well and good having something like parlare up on screen, but how do we actually convert this into a more useful form? So this is, it's the infinitive version. It doesn't particularly tell us much. It's just a kind of general version of talk, etc. We want to make some actual sentences like I talk, you talk, I want to talk, I talked, all of this kind of stuff. So what we are going to do is we're going to go down here, and we are going to, I'm just going to tell you what it is, and then we are going to look at the pattern that comes with this after. Okay, let me write these out, then we can pronounce them together. Okay, so they speak or they talk. Let's be consistent here. Let's make this box just a little bit bigger. You guys talk, we talk, he or she talks. This is you talk, and finally I talk. All right, let's pronounce these together. So, io parlo, tu parli, lui o lei parla. Noi parliamo, voi parlate, loro parlano. Okay, so the bit that I want you to pay attention to is the ending of these words. In fact, let's do red just to be consistent. Okay, let's do another word. Let's look at mangiare. Okay, so in fact, let me just duplicate this. for the size. Okay, so we have io mangio, tu mangi, lui, lei. I'll pronounce this more slowly in just a second. Let's have a look. Voi mangiate, loro mangiano. Okay, so in fact, let's go one by one. So io mangio. Say it with me. Io mangio. Tu mangi. Lui o lei mangia. Voi mangiate. Oh, pardon me, I skipped one. Noi mangiamo. Voi mangiate. And loro mangiano. Okay, so once again, let's look at the endings here. What do you know? They are exactly the same as the ones for parlo. So, all verbs. Okay, now someone is going to say, oh, well, I found one verb that doesn't fit this pattern. But it's easier to think of Italian in patterns. So all verbs that end in are, yeah, are verbs, are going to follow this pattern. Okay, now what is the pattern? Well, let's write it down. Let's pick a nice orange here. In fact, what I'm going to do, let's move this. In fact, no, we can keep it here. Okay, so here is the pattern. So for io, the ending is going to be O. What do I mean by this? Whenever we have a io version of the verb, an I version of the verb, it is going to end in O. For example, io parlo, io mangio. Okay, if you want to be more specific, okay, we're going to have the root of the verb here, and then add an O on the end. So remember the root. If we look at parlare, we're basically, what we're doing is we're chopping off the are bit. We're chopping off the are. So io parlo. We don't say io parlare. We say io parlo. We chop off that are. A big mistake I see beginners make is they say io parlaro. But this is incorrect. Because what we have done is we've taken the root to be this instead of just parle. So if this helps you, okay, write down the verb like this with the are bit in capital letters. And what we're doing is we're just chopping off the are, we're completely getting rid of it, and replacing it with an O. Io parlo. Yeah? Let's just write this down. Okay, so let's go back to here. In fact, just to avoid confusion, I'm just going to write it like this. And I'm just going to tell you the rest of these rules, and then we'll put this into practice. Okay, so let's go up here. These are for are verbs. All right, now let's look at an example. What do we have up here? Chiacchierare. All right, let's do this one. So chiacchierare. All right, what a lovely word. Let's make this a bit bigger. Okay, now to help distinguish kind of between the root and the are bit, if you like, if you want to think about it that way, we are going to write this section in capitals so that we know we are just going to have to copy out the rest of the root like this without the are bit, because the are bit, pardon me, I've written it incorrectly. The are bit is the bit that we are going to change. Like this, okay? So here we're going to write, in fact, let's follow our diagram up here. Let me maybe get a slightly different color. Let's go for a red. So this is going to follow our io version. So we are going to write io chiacchiero. Tu is going to follow our this design. My art skills are letting me down. All right, let's use this. Forget the top of the arrowhead. This bit is going to use the I ending. So we're going to say tu chiacchieri. You chit chat. Okay, probably you can guess the next one. We're going to say lui o lei chiacchiera. Noi chiacchieriamo. So all we're doing is we're replacing the are bit with what this table tells us. Voi chiacchierate, loro chiacchierano. Okay? That is it. Let's take one more example. You guys are going to do this one. When I say you guys, you watching this video is going to solve this one. Let's take telefonare, to telephone. Okay, so I'm going to write out the roots like this. Okay, pause the video here. See if you can figure out how we're going to correctly add in the ending. So just to recap one more time, we're going to replace A-R-E with these letters up here. O-I-A-I-O, I-A-M-O, etc. Right. Pause the video for a few seconds, have a go, and then we will show the answers. Okay. Hopefully with the magic of pausing the video, you got io telefono, tu telefoni, lui telefona, noi telefoniamo, voi telefonate, loro telefonano. Yeah? Okay, well done. Let's leave it there for the are verbs. Just to recap, what we talked about was the infinitive is split into three different buckets or groups in Italian. The are verbs, ere verbs, and the ire verbs. Okay, we conjugate them like so. They have similar endings. There's a pattern to the endings, which is good, because if you get a new verb you've never seen before in Italian, you will already have an idea of how to conjugate it. And by the way, I should mention, a big disclaimer, everything that we are doing, specifically today, is in the present tense. We will get to the more complicated stuff in due course, yeah? So, parlo, parli, parla, etc. And this, if you want to write in your notebook, this is really, let's get a little fancy border on this. Maybe we can get a nice red. That's not high enough contrast. Let's maybe pick a green. Go, lovely green. This is the table that you want to have written down. So this will allow you to predict when you get a new verb what the pattern will look like. Okay, next video we're going to talk about ere verbs and ire verbs together. Yeah, thank you for watching.